specificities. So why you have the avian flu to infect human beings? Again, like what we did the analysis for the MERS virus. Through the amino acid mutation, through the nucleotide mutations, they gradually adapt to the receptor binding. Why you see that? Because the avian virus and the human virus, they are using the different kind of receptors. For the avian virus, they use the avian-like receptor, and the human tissue, they use human-like receptor. How different is the human receptor, avian receptor? So have a look of the HA, this is a trimeric structure, this is a trimer. And this part, I don't want to touch anything about the cleavage. I want to mention to you, this cleavage between HA1, HA2 is very important. So this is already known for a long time. I don't want to touch this at all, but I want to focus this. This is the domain responsible for the receptor binding. So if you enlarge this part, you can see in structure, you have this amino acid, the secondary structure here, and you have 190 helix, 220 loop, and 130 loop. This is the cavity. Through this cavity, the avian-like receptor or human-like receptor will bind. So this is the avian-like receptor. It's a sialic acid linked to the galactose, with the glycan. If at the position, because 6-carbon structure, you have a 2 and 3 position, you have an avian receptor. If it's the 2, 6, they are different. You can imagine, put this and that into that cavity. They need different amino acid to adapt this receptor. So this is exactly what happened. Of course, we did a lot of work for H1, H2, H3, and previously. However, H7N9 epidemic gave us a very good chance because we isolated so many viruses. So for the first time for us to have naturally occurring H7 virus, they tell you how avian virus become a human-infected virus. The good example, have a look. It's 2 strains. One strain is the initial strain is Shanghai 1 H7N9 virus. It's called Shanghai 1. That's the initial index virus. And then you have the Anhui. Eventually, they become an Anhui virus H7N9. You look at the HA. Those 2 viruses, you only have 8 amino acid difference. So 4 of them located in the stalk region. As I mentioned, it's nothing to do with receptor binding. So we don't care about this. But look at here. This exactly located the other 4 amino acids located in the receptor binding domain. So when we did all this experiment with again Bicol and ELISA-based, you can see Anhui virus by the human receptor and the avian receptor, and Shanghai virus by to the avian receptor, a little bit human receptor. That's an early virus. And the control for the pandemic, 2009, pandemic virus, human receptor, nobody to avian. Atypical H5A1 bind to the avian receptor, almost nobody to the human receptor. This is the virus level. At the protein level, because I'm running a protein chemistry lab, look at Anhui virus, avian receptor, and the avian receptor bind well. But the Shanghai virus almost at a protein level, because protein level is a monomeric molecules. But when you have a virus, it's a multiple molecules on the surface. You can see some binding. Again, no binding here. So that really confirms what happened here. So cut a long story short, for all this, the H7N9, to give you an example, we also have a H5 Shanghai 5 virus. It's 2 amino acid difference. This time, naturally occurring H7 virus give you a very good example to see how they evolved. So the general conclusion would be, for any seasonal flu, they bind to 2,6 because only in your upper respiratory system you have a 2,6 human receptor, but in your lung you have a 2,3 avian receptors. This is occasionally like you got a lottery. You might be infected with H5N1, but the seasonal flu can be infected with, I should say not just most, almost 100% of people. And then H7N9 give a very good example, mainly bound to the avian receptor, but they obtain the human receptor binding affinity. So by then, when you talk about this, people will start build up some hypothesis or imagination. One day, if the H7N9 mutate further, you will have H7 like H1N1, H2N2, H3N2. Go back to what I show you, the balance. The virus doesn't work in this way. They stop there. Think about H5N1, H9N2. Now H7N9 4 years, 13, 14, 15, and 16. The virus in terms of the receptor binding, they state like the Aihui H7. All those 4 amino acid mutations in comparison with the Shanghai virus, still like that virus. Even, you heard, especially this season in China, we reported more H7N9 cases than we reported last year. So we have more H7N9, but the virus in terms of receptor binding keeps the same as Aihui virus. They just stop there. Of course, you can imagine yourself. Now I will come to the Ebola. So this is the Ebola. The Ebola was isolated in 1976 in Congo, Zaire here, and also this is the Western. So previously the virus always limited in Central Africa. So only in 2014 they came to this region. So look at historically, they always have every few years you have some cases, a few hundred, but you never get this one. It's like 30,000 for last outbreak. So I'm not going to talk about the epidemiology of this because today my focus is host jump and receptor binding. So what's the receptor binding for the Ebola virus? So Ebola virus, this is copied from Nature Review Microbiology, and this is a notorious feature of the Ebola virus, as you know, is like a worm. So this worm virus, I call it worm virus, quote, and get into the cell also by endocytosis. So endocytized into the cell, and the first question in my field, in my research would be, will the Ebola virus follow the same fusion triggering mode as we discussed the 4 types? I mentioned 4 modes. So will this follow that? So it's not. I'll show you what's the difference of this one. So endocytized here, and then through here, they bind to the receptor. They found the receptor in the endosome. Again, this is the first one. The first one is a LAMP, the other virus, but it's not really confirmed. But the first time for virus, all virus, to use the receptor is an endosome residing protein inside the endosome. They found the receptor binding here. So this is what our first step. The virus need to adhere on the cell surface. This is cell surface adhere through the T. It's a T cell immunoglobulin and mucin molecules like this. They have a very long mucin domain. This is highly glycosylated protein. This is called T. Mouse have 4 members, and human have 3 members, 1, 3, and 4. So what we know previously, so team 3 is not a good mediator for the Ebola virus adherence here. But the difference and 1, 4 with 3 is the length of this mucin domain. That's, mucin domain is very short. So for the first experiment we have done, so this is the 1976 virus, this is the 2014 virus. We didn't have the virus because it must be manipulated at the BSL-4 lab. We can do the pseudotyped virus. This is what, from the very beginning, people worried. Is this virus, in 2014 virus, is different from the early virus? So you can do a lot of experiments to test. They are the same or they are different. For us, we want to test whether or not the entry, in terms of the entry through the glycoprotein interaction, will be the same. This picture tells you it's the same. So 1976 virus and 2014 virus, in terms of mediation of the virus adherence, is the same through the it's for phosphatidylserine. So this is the molecule used also by HIV, dengue. So a lot of viruses. This is not specific binding. So and also we confirmed by Biocar, because my lab is running a lot of Biocar, team 1, team 4 bind very well. And also team 3 by using the Ig-like domain, also bind very well. So the difference, why are they different? Because the length. The length plays a very important. Remember what I show you here? So this domain, the Ig-like domain, those domain can really bind to the phosphatidylserine very well because it's too short, it's no binding for the team 3. But when you do the molecule for this, only the head domain, and it shows they also bind very well. So then but by the time then, no structure known for this human team. So we saw the structure. This is a domain. They would bind the phosphatidyl molecule, and we saw the crystal structure to hold the serine, the phosphatidylserine would bind with the calcium help for this FG loop. This is the first step, adherence. And then the second step, will be the receptor binding. As I mentioned, this is the first endosome residing receptor binding to for the undeveloped virus. So this is again the virus, and they through the binding of the non-specific receptor endocytized, and this is the receptor. It's called NPC1, Niemann-Pick C1. That's a molecule important for cholesterol trafficking in the endosome. So they use this one. How they use this one? So this is a model, schematic. So you have a glycoprotein on the surface of the Ebola virus. And the virus is very clever. The virus uses the cathepsin L in the endosome. This enzyme only found in the endosome. So they use this endosome, residing enzyme, to chop off this. This domain is very important for the entry, initial entry, and also very important maybe it's a camouflage to cover the receptor binding whatsoever, because highly glycosylated protein maybe immune escape. So of course you need further study, but chop off this part, they becoming into the GP1 and the GP2. Again, for the Ebola virus, glycoprotein, they also need to be cleaved into GP1 and GP2, like what we talked about earlier. So when you got 20 kD GP1, then they are used a second enzyme, cathepsin B, also residing in the endosome, to chop off another 1 kD fragment, then into 90 kD GP1. By then, they can bind to the OPC1. So this is the current theory, and we confirm it's indeed, it works like this. So this is the molecule for the OPC1. The OPC1 like that, they have a luminal domain A, C, and I, very big. The A domain is important, also structure, published in 2014 in Cell. They bind to the cholesterol for the cholesterol trafficking. And the C domain and I domain might work as a scaffold to hold the whole structure, the 13 transmembrane domain for the trafficking. And Ebola virus hijacking this domain, domain C, for the binding of the this molecule. So then we saw the structure. So this is a crystal structure OPC1 C domain, and we know it's a glycosylated protein. You can see a lot of glycosylated protein, and we did the work. We confirmed non-glycosylated E. coli refolded protein and glycosylated protein for the again bical binding, no difference. So they are very similar for the binding affinity. We were lucky enough. We saw the crystal structure this time. So domain C is here, and the GP glycoprotein cleaved. We call it cleaved GP. So GPCL. They also bind like this. Let me show you a clever movie to show you how they bind. So this is a trimeric glycoprotein. Leave only one molecule. So they have a cavity. You look at this. They have a cavity here, and you have a OPC1 C domain. C domain have a protruding loop. Here's a loop. So this loop insert. You have a look into this cavity. There's a cavity here, and then you like a lock and key. Exactly lock and key body. This is the cavity. So that gives you a lot of imagination. After this, although it's a structure, but give you a lot of imagination. You might be able to design a small molecules or small peptide to lock this cavity. That's the one you can imagine yourself. Detailed structure shows you that this is a mucin domain chopped off, and look at this. The detailed binding, you can look at this detailed binding, you found they are all, large ring structure amino acid here. This loop, they protrude into this highly hydrophobic. This highly hydrophobic protruding loop inserted into this cavity. So now you come with this conclusion. So they need, entry, and then they bind to this receptor. I have another movie to show you how they get into the cell. So this is the cell attached by the Ebola virus. There's a notorious picture. You go on the internet, you always see Ebola like this. It's a worm, yeah? And then they will, this is the host cell. This is Ebola virus. If you, enlarge this part, you will see the virus attached on the cell surface through the TEAM molecule. This adherence. So with this adherence, and then they will, by endocytosis, they will get into the cell. You look at this, this virus cytotized into the cell. Once they get into the cell, be in the endosome. So once they are in the endosome, the virus will use the surface protein, glycoprotein, the GP. So you have GP, this is the GP, and first they need to chop off. You're going to chop off the mucin as the other part. And then you propose the receptor binding domain bind to the receptor. So after this binding, and again, like the type 1 molecule, and sorry, this one must have a conformation change here. And then they will release genetic materials. They're active. This is what, what happened with this model. And also, you look at the OPC1, highly hydrophobic look, they will interact into the GP. You can imagine. And if you have a small molecule here, and they wouldn't bind it. So this is, structural biology can lead for some design of the inhibitors. So this is my, conclusion. This is the 4 types of the fusion triggering. After the Ebola virus, we end up with the 4th one. So Ebola virus, again, like this guy, endocytized into the cell. Then the 5th form of the triggering, you have a receptor residing in the endosome. So this is the 5th. I guess we will have the 6th, 7th, it's quite complicated. So far, we have 5 fusion triggering mode for all these viruses. So after we published this paper for the Ebola, in collaboration with Dr. Yening, remember the structure we got, it's only the C domain. So we solved the whole OPC1 structure with the GPCL. So this is the whole structure. Look at this whole structure. 13 transmembrane domain residing here. And then you have all this, the green one, this is the domain C. And this is the domain A. This is domain I. This is the luminal domain. So the exposed surface. This is the 13 transmembrane domain. This is the domain. You can look at this tree, this loop. This loop is binding. This paper coming out today in Cell. So this figure you will see in Cell today with this structure. And look at this. The first question would be, because the GP is a trimer, and OPC1, from the structure we solved, we didn't say it's a trimeric. So will this trimeric GP bind 3 molecules or 1? So when this is the cryo-EM structure. So when we say we got only 1 molecule bind to one of the molecules in the trimer. So whether or not that's, would follow all the other virus glycoprotein, we don't know. But at least this is what we got. So you have interest, and it will be released today, 26th, in Cell, and have it in detail. Those are the 2 pictures. And then we did, more importantly, I want to mention too, they also use this paper. Last paper we published also in Cell, but we didn't do the pH-dependent binding. What we saw, the OPC1, pH 7.5, pH 6, they could be different. We cannot get down lower than 6. Once you get to 5.5, the protein will be aggregated. But you can say 7.5 and 6, they are different, 1 digit different. So that tells you pH-dependent binding for the receptor to the Ebola glycoprotein.